Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And I just woke up from my nap. And it's funny when I started doing this podcast, I was like, should I put makeup on? Should I do my hair? Like, I would put on a good shirt from and now I'm like, yeah, let's just do it right now. I am not, yes, I'm dressed, but I'm not like how I would normally go out in public. And this is public, so I don't know. I'm comfortable, I guess that's what it is. But anyway, the topic that I wanted to talk about today is making use of the phone. And this was, again, the topic in my morning meeting. And I like to talk about what I learned or what I heard in my morning meeting, because it really becomes like the theme of my whole thought process throughout the day. I really start thinking about, like, do I pick up the phone enough? Do I use my voice enough? Yes, I use my voice enough by doing this podcast, but no, I don't pick up the phone enough. And that's why I like to talk about it. By talking about these things, it um really starts to get into my crawl, like I really need to do it. And sometimes I actually, like, as soon as the meeting is over, I'm like, I'm gonna call somebody, and I do. Um, so I get in and out of picking up the phone, and it's something that we learn in sobriety early on. Some sponsors give their sponsees a requirement that you have to call me every day. Some people, if they are really struggling, will call their sponsor multiple times in a day. And that's really what's expected. My sponsor, I warned her, this is my third sponsor, and I warned her that I'm not great at picking up the phone. She said she's not great at picking up the phone either. So I don't know. It's progress, not perfection. And I do try to, I do make an effort to pick up the phone. For me, I probably sometimes I'll call if I'm just not feeling quite right. Sometimes I'll call just to practice doing it when everything is okay. And I think that that's important. And I don't do that enough. You lifetime listeners know that one of my goals has been to call somebody or talk to somebody every day. And yep, that fell off the radar. And some people have helped me with that. I have a friend who, when she's in town and not in Ireland on a 2-week vacation or something like that, she'll call me almost every day. That's dropped off a little bit, as she is was a coworker of mine, and has taken on a lot of my job. So she's very busy now. But anyway, she's always great about calling me. And my sissy's always great about calling me. And I've got some other folks. My old boss, he calls me sometimes and tells me I don't call him enough. So it's practice. It's something that I need to talk about out loud and make it come to fruition by doing that. What I experienced in early sobriety was that this act of picking up the phone breaks my thinking cycle. And I think that's why it's important to do it and why we learn to make it a habit. So one thing that I experienced was one night I was driving home from work, and I was on, for those of you from this area, I was on the Route 9 going over the mountain into West Virginia from Northern Virginia. And there is a gas station right at the top of that. mountain, and it's one that I would stop at. Not a lot, but when I knew it was there and they had alcohol if I needed it and I didn't have any. So I was driving over the mountain. I had been sober for probably about 6 months or something like that, maybe even more. And I started feeling really like nervous that I didn't trust myself to pass that gas station. I felt like that day, I was very capable of pulling over and picking up some wine. So I thought, okay, what do they tell me to do in the program? They tell me to call somebody, and just keep calling until somebody picks up. So that's what I did. I started calling. On that section of Route 9, the cell service is really bad. So I was like, oh, if somebody picks up, they probably won't even hear me. I didn't have to worry about that because I called like 5 people and nobody ever picked up the phone. And I was so irritated. I was so like, well, they say to call and nobody even picks up the phone. So I'm liable to go and pick up alcohol. Anyway, and I was so wrapped up in the fact that I had such a poor network of people that nobody picked up the phone when I called that I had broke my thinking cycle about my craving for alcohol. I passed right by that gas station trying to call people, trying to get somebody to pick up. And I was really proud of myself for continuing to go down my phone list and call people until somebody picked up. The fact that nobody picked up, although I was obsessed about that and upset about that, it didn't matter, you see, because just the act of picking up the phone broke the craving, broke what I needed, broke that thinking cycle. So I think that it's an important thing for me to remember today as well in stroke recovery, as sometimes I teeter in this area of like depression. I don't even know if it's depressed. It's like I'm afraid I'm gonna become depressed. It's like I'm right on the edge and I need to do the work, call people, do my podcast, go to meetings, do things that I enjoy. I need to do that hard work that I was talking about yesterday in order to not get depressed. Like, I know what depression feels like. I lived in it for a very long time. And so when I feel that it's knocking on the door, and I don't want to open it, it's like I turn the other way and I pick up the tools of my program. And that applies in everything that we experience in life. If we lose somebody special to us, it's important to grieve, but it's also important to live our lives as well. Um, Practice living with grief as it processes, because grief take so long to process. It's so important that we practice living while it happens. And I tend to, if I lose somebody important to me, I tend to stop living. I tend to feel like I don't deserve to live because they're gone. Because why do I get to live? It's like liver. Um, you know how they have like buyer's remorse? It's like living remorse or something, It's like, why do I get to be here? And they don't. I'm just gonna shut down. And that's what I do. And again, it's important for me to, when I'm feeling that bad, that I need to practice doing the hard work to lift myself back up because I'm not always going to have somebody that picks up the phone. I have to learn how to carry myself. I have to learn how to um, lean on my higher power, practice uh, improving my relationship with my higher power, because that is a call that the phone will always be picked up. I can always pause and have a conversation, quote unquote, a conversation, the way that I have a conversation with my concept of my higher power. It's a phone that's always going to be picked up. And I'm saying that out loud, and I don't do that enough either. There's lots of sponsors that when something's wrong, the sponsor will say, "Have you prayed about it?" Um, well, my answer was always no, because I didn't think it's not natural for me to like have something be wrong and be like, okay, now's the time to pray. And I just do it. It's just not automatic for me. But I'm assured that over time it will become something that's automatic. And I have the rest of my life to practice it, which is kind of an exciting deal I have. So, and as far as the phone, so these days texting has become, I think, an excuse for not picking up the phone, quote unquote, and calling. And it shouldn't be. There's a lot, just like we pick up people's facial expressions when they're talking, and that's how lots of people end up having miscommunications in text. I think that it's also voice inflection says a lot. Sometimes I don't need to see the words that somebody is there for me. I need to hear their voice. Um, and I was reminded this morning that making a call to somebody is not only helpful to break my own thought cycle, but it's also an answer to somebody else's um, problems sometimes, somebody else's struggles. If I never know if my mom is thinking about something upsetting or something that is that needs to be broken, a thought cycle needs to be broken. It's important that I call my mom for her, not just for me. It's important that I call my sponsor, not just for me, but I can tell my sponsee that when she calls me, it helps me. It helps me stay sober. And I quite often think, well, I don't want to call them because I'm probably bothering them. They're busy. Well, that's just that's just bullshit. They're not busy, that back in the day, we always called. We never thought, I'm not going to call them because they're probably busy. We just called because we knew that there was an answering machine. Back then, the biggest thing that we had in technology was an answering machine, and we could leave a message if somebody was busy. So I don't remember ever having that excuse. I'm not going to call because they're busy. I would call because I can leave a message. And today, I don't even leave a message a lot of times. It depends on who I'm calling, but I just rely on the fact that the person is going to see that I called. And man, I have gotten lazy with my communication. Um, it is important for me to use my voice and leave a message and say, this is why I was calling, because even my message might be helpful to somebody else. So if you aren't compelled to call somebody for yourself, call someone for them, get out of self. one thing that I heard somebody say this morning, and I do the same thing, is when someone crosses my mind, I reach out to them. Yes, I text them, but or I'll send them a Facebook message if it's somebody that I don't have their phone number. But I do like to reach out to people that cross my mind to tell them I'm thinking of you or I thought of you and wanted to reach out. I think it's a special treat. And I know I love when somebody tells me that I was just thinking of you. It's almost like I can get into these funks where I'm like, nobody is thinking about me. Nobody knows. Like I'm in these four walls. I'm always in this house. Except for when I walk my dogs. Who's thinking of me and why would they think of me? Because I'm not interacting with them. Well, that's just not true. People are thinking about me all the time. And and it's nice to hear that. It's nice when I hear my mom say that she's thinking of me. It's nice when I get a random message from somebody that I haven't talked to in years just because they said they were thinking of me. I mean, that is so cool. Um, so that's something I've been trying to do because it just feels like a real treat when somebody does it to me. So it would be great if I could make it a habit to actually call when somebody is when I'm thinking of somebody. Another thing about calling now that I'm medically retired is that I know everybody works. And so now that's become my excuse. I'm not going to call because they're working. They don't have to pick up the phone. Just like in the 80s, we didn't pick up the phone if we weren't available. Um, Back in the 80s, we couldn't even see who was calling. We just knew the phone was ringing. But back then, people weren't trying to sell us anything on the phone that I recall. I don't remember ever picking up the phone and it was somebody I didn't know when I picked up the phone. I think back then they used to knock on your door to sell you a vacuum or something like that. Um, so my self-talk is pretty strong when it says to me, I don't wanna. You know, when after I finish this podcast, like what I plan on on doing is getting ready because I'm going to dinner tonight with my sponsor. So I'm super excited about that. We're going to go have Mexican. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm in the mood for Mexican, but I want some chips and salsa like really bad. So I'm gonna get ready and do that. But I have been thinking more and more over the past several days that I need to pick up the phone and call this guy I used to work with. I need to call my ex-coworker. I need to call my mom. I need to call my dad, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking about it. That's a step, right? Progress, not perfection. And I'm going to say good job to me for thinking about calling. And because I could very well sit here and shrink down in my seat and not have any desire or willingness to call anyone. I could be sitting here and thinking, nobody's calling me, me. And I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking that I need to be calling more people. But I've been thinking I need to call more people for me. And now, after today, I'm able to think to push that thought even further. I need to call people for them. I did recently, the past couple days, I reached out to somebody who was on text, who was really important to my early sobriety. She was like one person who kept sending me texts and telling me like just checking on me. How are you doing this morning? And it was like, I used to get up. I had a really long drive in the morning. I was living in Charlestown and I had to drive to Herndon, which is in rush hour traffic, an hour and a half each way. And so I would get up in the morning and I would sit down in front of my closet. It had a mirror on the front of it, and that's where I would do my hair and my makeup and everything. And I would sit there and, I'm so tired and I'm sitting there. Oh, I made myself yawn. I'm sitting there and ding, my phone dings and it's her. And she was just like saying good morning. And it was great. I used to love that. So I haven't talked to her in a long time. And I sent her a text and I said, I've been thinking about you and I wanted to tell you how important you were to me in my early sobriety. She had no idea. She had no idea what kind of an impact she had on me. So I told her, let's keep in touch. And have I done anything since then? No. So when I hit stop, I'm going to text her and say, hi, I hope you're having a great day, or I hope you're having a good day. I know that she experienced some loss herself. So it's even more important that I help her break her thought cycle. Um, I need to be willing to depend on that which is outside of myself. And I've talked about that before, working so hard throughout my life to become independent and learning now in sobriety and stroke recovery how important it is to depend on other people and to depend on my higher power. Um, when I get what I need where I need it, I should say, I get what I need where and when I need it, when I remain willing to keep those channels of communication open. Whether that is, when it comes down to it, whether it means picking up the phone and using my voice or texting. I do need to. Sometimes texting is a good excuse when it's so easy, when I'm feeling down and I can just text somebody, I'm not feeling very good. It is a little bit of an easy way to break that thought cycle and not have to, you know, scratch and crawl my way out of the gutter. I can just send a text and get help crawling out of the gutter. So it's not to discount text entirely. I really just wanted to encourage us all to use our voices a little more. Um, self-sufficiency is is not self-sufficiency is not cool. It is just being less connected with other people. And so let's remember today to pick up the phone, dial it, listen to the dial tone, listen to that good old dial tone, listen to it ring busy, leave messages, use our voice. Like, we certainly need to try to connect ourselves even more, especially with all of this terrible news. Oh my gosh. My husband and I listen, well, he reads the news to me off of his phone every evening, and we talk about the news. And then at the very end, we say no news is good news with Gary Gnews. If any of you are familiar with the Great Space Coaster, we say no news is good news with Gary Gnews because it's true. There is no news that's good news, really. Once in a blue moon, there's something cool, like they have found a new drug to fight Alzheimer's or something like that, but it's very few and far between. So, with all of this terrible stuff going on in the world, man, don't you want to deal with things together? And I think the best step for doing that is, if we can't be together, is to pick up the phone and listen to each other's voices. Man, there's so much growth in talking to one another and communicating. So that's what I've got for you today. It's time for me to get ready for my big night out. Having some Mexican, having my chips and salsa with my sponsor. I'm totally excited. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.